I'm Dave Palumbo, founder of Species Nutrition. From my earliest bodybuilding days, I believed in only putting the best in my body. And that lives on in the Species Nutrition line of products. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
Hey guys, we're super excited to be here at the LA Fit Expo. It's our third year in a row. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be launching the Tasty Pastry. It's a low-carb Pop-Tart. It's got 3 to 4 grams of net carbs. And we love this show. This is our best place to be in LA.
If you want to build a massive chest, you have to stop bench pressing right now.
Welcome to Heinz Senior's Coaching App. Get access to the P3AK High Intensity Training ebook and its exclusive video tutorials. Commit with Heinz's coaching right now and be provided with a year of meal plans, training programs, and more. www.p3akday.com. There is no room for the littles.
RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions, diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, news, whatever's on your mind, it is all on the table. We have a lot to get to. I know Dave has a packed schedule, so we're going to get right to the questions. The first 2 questions, of course, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. First question, Dave, what was your biggest takeaway from the bodybuilding industry this past year? I know you just did an episode of Heavy Muscle Radio on it where you named your top 5 stories of 2021, but I guess the big standout moment from this last year.
You know, I don't know why it sticks out in my head. Sean Roden really, the death of Sean Roden was really tragic, and I hate to be a negative type of situation that kind of sticks out, but I think that's going to be what everyone remembers from 2021, more so than Ramy winning another Olympia, more so than Nick Walker winning the Arnold Classical. That's probably the best positive story I would say of the year, but I just think the tragedy of losing, and we've lost a lot of bodybuilders. Not being, George Peterson was tragic too, but I'm saying Sean Roden, because he won the Olympia, because was going through the whole trial thing that he was going through, and then to just have him drop like that, I think that in my mind is burned in there pretty deeply, and I think it's tragic, but I think that's it kind of really typifies what 2021 was all about. It wasn't a greatly positive year for most people. I mean, knock on wood, and thank God that in my situation I had a pretty decent 2021. But a lot of people had a lot of problems, COVID and deaths in the industry. People were losing family members and friends, and the shows went off, but there was it wasn't quite the way we would have liked to seen them. Hopefully 2022 will be a lot better, but to me, it's Sean Roden.
Second question, again, from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Dave, you usually recommend some carbs off-season to use like energy and let the protein and fat repair the muscle. I use only carbs before training, and the rest of the meals are high in protein and fat, and I feel great, no bloat. I'm growing without increasing fat, says Mass with Class. My question is, why do you always say that incorporating carbs in all the meals is necessary to grow and put on mass?
Well, it's not necessary. The great thing about carbohydrates is they can be stored as glycogen in the muscles and in the liver. So if you figure, hey, I need 80 grams, 100 grams for the day to get me through my workouts and my brain functioning properly and to feel good in the gym, then it doesn't really matter, how you spread them out. My problem is, the reason I like to spread them out throughout the day is because you're constantly getting a nice steady level of glucose in the blood. If you only eat them once a day or twice a day pre and post workout, the other portions of the day you're going to get low blood sugars, okay? Because your brain is looking for sugar, and it's going to have to try to now mobilize the stored glycogen in the liver and the muscles to get that glucose. It's not efficient. Why not, if you're going to eat 80 grams or 100 grams, let's say, for the day, why not spread it over 4 meals, rather than do it in 2 meals? You're going to get a much better distribution of blood sugar. Especially if you're in an off-season scenario, why suffer? Why have to say, oh, I can't wait till my workout, because I get to eat right before my workout carbs, and then right after I get some carbs, and then I got to starve the rest of the day. Even though you're eating protein and fat, I understand that. That's obviously what's necessary to build and repair muscle. Those are the essential raw materials. But a lot of people get low blood sugars, and then they wind up cheating because of that. So some people are very disciplined and they can do that. Other people, I feel, work better when you spread the carbs evenly throughout the day so that they don't get lows and want to then go cheat and eat everything in sight. And that's really it. It doesn't really matter. Protein always needs to be spread out because you can't store protein. So you can't eat all your protein in the morning and then have it cover the whole day. Carbs you can do that with. You can even do it with fats to a certain degree because your body stores fats too. But I always find when you divide your nutrients over the course of the day, obviously focusing, especially in an off-season scenario, with no fats after your workout, with high fast digesting protein like whey isolate, with a high molecular weight carb or something like that post-workout, that seems to work the best. When you kind of limit it to 2 meals, I just feel like the energy distribution is weird. I've tried that in my past, like just eating carbs like certain times a day, and I found that I was starved in the morning, and then I would be starved before bed, and I would always wind up eating extra food. Now, I had a good metabolism, it didn't matter, but I said, why do I want to feel all up and down the whole day? I'd rather just feel even, so I spread my carbs throughout the day evenly. And I do that with my clients, and it works well, and I don't really see a lot of cheating in the off-season because of that.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not already following us, our handle is official_RxMuscle. If you're watching us for the first time here on our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button below, hit the notification bell. Obviously, we have this episode every Wednesday, Heavy Muscle Radio, which we have now more or less shifted as a live show on Sunday nights, which is really drawn a lot of positive feedback from all of you in the sense that you get to be a part of the show. You get to partake in the conversation. It's been a lot of fun. You have Dave, you have Chris Aceto, sometimes you'll have John Romano. Sometimes you'll have Lee Priest. This past week we had Xavier Wills from Desktop Bodybuilding. So you never know who's going to drop in, but it's always great, pure bodybuilding conversation. So that's Sunday night. Tuesdays we have our all new episodes of the After Hours podcast. And that's kind of where, Dave, I'm going to lead into our first question. We've gotten a lot of positive feedback about someone who's been a bit of a recurring guest lately. Lesley Timbol. She's a sports psychologist. She's also a bodybuilder. A lot of positive feedback as far as she's great on the panel. The negative we get is that she doesn't get to get a word in because everyone just jumps on her.
Panel, that's for sure, yeah.
but I did want you to address because look, we are living in wonky times right now in the era of the pandemic. It's an era which we have seen, unfortunately, we have seen deaths. We have seen a lot of tragedy, not just within the bodybuilding industry, but in the world as a whole. But you have seen a lot of depression settle in, a lot of, mental issues. Speak about the, significance of having someone like a Lesley involved in the bodybuilding industry and what she can offer to our friends in the bodybuilding world.
Well, interestingly, Lesley and I have discussed doing a show, once she gets settled. I think she's got to go back to Canada. She's Canadian. And once she gets settled, we were talking about doing a show, like a therapy show for bodybuilding, where we talked about like subjects, maybe eating disorders and, people who have problems with anxiety and, maybe they have medical restrictions and getting through injuries and dealing with, the mental aspect of that. And that, I think a show like that would be very popular because I think it can help people. Because I remember when I would be, competing and I would get, pull a muscle or couldn't train a body part, and I would get depressed because of it. And it would be really hard to and I always had other interests, so I would kind of shift my interest to those. But a lot of people have trouble dealing with that, and especially COVID, not being able to go to the gym maybe or get the foods you need. So it's definitely possible that we might do a show, her and I together, and talk about some of these topics, because I think it would definitely be helpful for the industry. And after all, that's I'm trying to educate people and give people knowledge to be the best that they can be, not only as bodybuilders, but from a health standpoint. And mental health is just as important as physical health, because your brain really and how you think affects the physicality of your body. So we definitely will be exploring that over the next month or so.
Let's go to Van Blurk Renier. Dave, what can be done to lower sex drive? For instance, taking 1,000 mg of test a week is so overwhelming that you can't be satisfied. Is there another compound that blocks the sexual aspect of, say, testosterone?
Now I've heard it all. I'm always getting emails and questions about how to increase sex drive. This person can't have an erection. This person has reduced sex drive. Now I've heard it all, Sid. Now they don't want to have a high sex. Don't take 1,000 milligrams of testosterone a week. How about that? That would be a very simple solution. You could reduce your estrogen too much. If you lower estrogen too much, your sex drive kind of gets tempered a little bit. But the problem with that is then your androgen receptors are not as receptive. The simple answer is don't take as much testosterone. Take less testosterone, maybe more anabolics like, DECA, which we know kind of can blunt sex drive a little bit. Primobolan, if it's available, Winstrol, Masterone. These are compounds that are very anabolic, but they have less androgen in them. You don't want to take trenbolone, and you don't want to take too much testosterone because that will jack your sex drive up quite a bit. D-balls will do the same thing. So maybe instead of taking 1,000 milligrams of testosterone a week, even though I believe that's ideal, do 500 milligrams of testosterone a week or 400 milligrams of testosterone a week, and take, Masteron at, 300 to 500 milligrams a week. Take some DECA with that, for another 400 or 500 milligrams a week, and see how that works. Usually it's the highly androgenic compounds that really jack up the sex drive. But yeah, I never had anyone ask me that question, but I've heard it all now.
Somebody's bouncing all over the place. Like, slow it down. David Jaworski official. Is there anything inherently dangerous with having low single-digit body fat year-round, assuming you're still eating a high-calorie diet with plenty of essential fats and not taking anything P.E.D.-wise to stay that way?
Yeah. I wonder that myself because I'm not on any P.E.Ds at all. I take a occasional shot of HCG, and I have basically 0% body fat on my body. I'm always like, man, if there was ever if I ever got caught on a desert island, I'd be dead in like 3 days. I have no reserves whatsoever. But no, I think it's very healthy to be very lean, as long as you're eating enough food, to feed your metabolism and to feed the essential requirements of your body, which is enough protein, enough essential fats, and some carbs, obviously, to give your brain some fuel. I think you're fine. It's why would you want to carry around unnecessary body fat, if you don't need it? The great thing about, having a good metabolism is that if you want to have a cheat meal, you don't have to worry about it. You're not going to, it's funny. I know that there's no way I could ever gain any body fat. And I've actually had doctors tell me that I've never seen anyone with such low body fat, all year round. I mean, literally, there's no body fat on me. But what happens is my body, I know what my body's set point is. In other words, I know exactly how much I need to eat and if I don't eat that much, I know that I'm going to lose weight. But I can compensate by making my foods more dense. So I use a lot of macadamia nut oil. I pour a lot of that in my food. So I'm getting a lot of fat calories in my diet, which is very calorie and nutrient dense. So I don't have to eat a humongous volume of food, but I can eat, smaller portions of food, but get more out of it. And I think that's something that you should try yourself if you do have, a very fast metabolism. Fats tend to slow, or sometimes it feeds the metabolism, but it also will at least give your metabolism something to burn. I think a lot of times people who have fast metabolisms, they try to eat more carbs thinking that that's going to do it. And sometimes that just revs the metabolism up, and carbs are not very calorie dense, and they'll get burned up really, really quickly. And I notice that too. I can actually lose weight if I start eating more carbs and eat less fats. So it's all about balance. Give your body what it needs. Your body doesn't really want to lose or gain, So I've been 195 pounds probably for the last 2 years, and sometimes I look a little bigger depending on how many grams of carbs I eat, and I carb up a little bit, or my t-shirt's a little small. Sometimes I look a little small if I wear baggy clothes, or maybe I'm a little depleted because I didn't eat as many carbs that day. But by and far, my body weight doesn't change at all, and so that's a good thing, If you're losing weight rapidly and you're eating the same food, there might be something wrong with you. Just like if you're gaining weight for no reason, there might be something wrong with you. It could be thyroid problem. Either way, you can have hyperthyroid, which can cause you to lose weight. You can have hypothyroid, which means why you're getting fatter. So whenever there's a dramatic change in body weight or something like that in your body, you always want to get checked out because there could be a problem. But if this is just your regular set point, don't worry about it. Enjoy it.
Let's go to bodybuilding and wrestling. The question is, if your lower back hurts from bent over rows, can you do Dorians, reverse grip rows, and one arm rows to compensate?
Well, if you have a back problem, I probably wouldn't do bent rows at all until the back problem is over, because you're putting your back in a very compromised position, whether you're doing reverse or over grip. And what I usually do is I kind of alternate it. 1 week I'll do over, 1 week I'll do reverse grip pulls. They're both going to put your lower back, however, in a compromised position, because if you're leaning over doing a bent row, your back is the weak link, so to speak. You can wear a belt all you want. What I would recommend is if you have a back problem, especially if it's only like an acute injury, use machines. You know, there's nothing wrong with doing that as a rehab. I wouldn't do them on a regular basis, only machines, but get on a machine that has a pad here and do your rows so it's supporting your body. You can do your pull downs. You know, there's a lot of different machines that enable you. There's even machines where I do one arm at a time, like the hammer strength row machine. I would do that until your back feels good, then go back to more of your free weights where you're doing your one arm dumbbell rows and your bent over barbell rows, because you're looking to make the problem worse if you're putting your back, especially if you're strong and you're putting a lot of weight on the bar. That could be a disaster if waiting to happen.
Let's go to there's a question about. You know what? I'm going to skip over. It's kind of a grim question. Let's go to Swole Ginger. I've tried everything from my arms, twice a week training, a lot of volume, low volume, training them once a week, doing cables and sets of dumbbells. My arms just don't seem to grow. Any suggestions?
The age-old question. Some people just don't have good arm genetics. I found that when I started originally, before synthol came out, and site injection, we used to do just like site injecting, like whatever anabolics we were using, whether it be cc of testosterone or cc of equipoise or something like that. And I found that by doing that into the arms, the bicep and triceps, I felt like there was more of a mind-muscle connection there. Like some people have these just great mind-muscle connection. They can feel everything they're doing and they grow really well. Other people, I got a long arm, so I found like I had problems connecting with the bicep muscle. So when I had more volume in there and it was like a little irritated, I felt it more. And when I was able to feel it more, I felt like I grew better. It wasn't the fact that I was putting testosterone in my bicep, because you're not going to grow locally like that from doing that. But it was the idea that I was able to connect with that muscle better. Same thing, I had a big problem with my upper chest development. And I used to put like a half cc of my whatever gear I was using in each inner pec. And I just, when I would squeeze on the incline bench, I just felt it more because there was an irritation there, and it maybe gave me a better mind-muscle connection. So you might want to try that. Obviously, taking that to the next level, you can use like a site injection oil, like the Painless Pumps Generation 4. I have that on my DavePalumbo.com website. I mean, that's something that you can use where it's going to, once again, give you that mind-muscle connection, but also give you a volumization effect. And it's also going to have a positive nutrient partitioning effect, which will help build muscle there as well. So these are all techniques that can be utilized, especially if you're using gear or you're at that level. If you're not at that level where you're not using gear or you're not injecting anything, then what my suggestion would be to make sure you're really well carbed up on arm day, so that you can have maximum glycogen pump in there. Make sure you take your creatine too, a good pre-workout, big stimuli, would give you a nice pump in that muscle, and really make sure you feel the muscle. Don't just lift weights to get the weight up. Make sure you're feeling the bicep contract. Make sure you're feeling the tricep contract. Make sure you're doing your hammer curl so you hit that brachialis muscle in the middle. Don't leave out any, a lot of people train only the bicep and the tricep, and they miss the brachialis, and then they're missing a good third of their arm mass. So these are all techniques. When you put them all together, you're going to get results. And you have to be patient. It doesn't happen overnight. If you don't have I know guys that they got 20-inch arms, they've been training for 6 months. That's just because they have good arm genetics. Don't look at those guys. There's guys like myself and other guys out there that didn't have good arm genetics, but that they still built 20, 22-inch arms because of the fact that they used the science of training and the science of eating and supplementation to get their arms to that point. So it's not impossible.
We have about 3 to 4 questions regarding being over the age of 50, 55 and being able to put on muscle. So we'll take this one from Big Ant. At the age of 55, is it still possible to put on new muscle, or because of an injury and time off, can you regain the muscle you lost?
I think it's a lot easier to regain what you lost at an older age than it is to put on new muscle. Now that's not to say that you can't gain new muscle. But if you've been, let's say you were training and at one point you were, 260-pound bodybuilder, you competed, and then you stopped for a while maybe, or you went off anabolics and you lost downsized, 50, 60 pounds, and then you wanted to get back to it again. You could probably regain a lot of that muscle, assuming you don't have any major injuries. However, if you were that big, and then you go back to training after maybe 5 or 6 years of not training, you're probably not going to get much bigger than that because you were pretty maxed out already. Now, if you're a guy who never really worked out his whole life, maybe just did basic gym stuff, never was super, never competed, never really had a lot of mass, and then all of a sudden you decided 45 or 50 years old, hey, I want to get into bodybuilding, and you really go all out, and you eat right, and you're training, and you're doing stuff that you didn't do, and maybe you're doing anabolics, you will definitely grow. I've seen a lot of the guys at the Masters Nationals who win the over 60 or over 70, age category. These guys got started later in life, and that's why their muscles look fresh and they look pretty good. A lot of guys, when they get to their 60s and 70s, if they've been training their whole life, they got a million injuries already. So it is possible to grow muscle, but not if you were really big at one point. You probably can get back to maybe where you were if you're lucky, but you're probably going to have a tough time going beyond that if you were really big at one point earlier in your life.
Good. Aesthetics, nutrition. If you have serious issues with water retention, is it worth using a diuretic daily if it helps to keep blood pressure under control, or better to take an actual blood pressure medication? Pros versus cons.
Yeah, if you're trying to control blood pressure, I would recommend like an ACE inhibitor, like ramipril, lisinopril, or like an angiotensin receptor blocker, like telmisartan or valsartan, because those are better ways to control blood pressure. If you're taking a diuretic, okay, you might look better, but you're putting a lot of strain on your kidneys because the kidneys have to flush these electrolytes out with the water. So I feel like that puts that's probably not good for the kidneys long term. Now, some people who have like congestive heart failure, their hearts don't pump well, they retain fluid in their legs because their bodies can't get rid of it because of the heart is not acting like an efficient pump. Those people they put on Lasix because their bodies just can't get rid of the water. But if you're functioning well and you just have maybe a little bit of elevated blood pressure and you're just a little bloated, I would not take diuretics on a regular basis. Not smart, certainly not good for your kidneys long term, and you don't really need them. You just need a blood pressure med that's going to control, keep the vessels open a little wider, protect the kidneys, and handle blood pressure in a safer way with less side effects.
We've gotten this question obviously over the course of the last 2 years or so. But again, given the fact that we're still very much in the midst of what's going around, and you have bodybuilders in particular who are trying to transition back into their training if they have gotten COVID and trying to overcome COVID and its effects. Alexander Carlson wants to know, I guess, in terms of supplements, drugs, if you've had a bad case of COVID, what should you be taking? What are some of the essential supplements that you would recommend?
Yeah, I have my COVID stack, I call it, because for people who, number one, want to keep themselves healthy, so that they don't get COVID, or so if they do get it, they won't get a bad case of it, and then also stuff that you can add in if you do get COVID to help maybe prevent some of the side effects that come with it, the clotting issues, the length with which time you have it. And I want to just say one thing before I even go into these supplements. If you have COVID, and I know a lot of people have been getting this new Omicron variety, it doesn't seem to be quite as bad in terms of the effects of it, but a lot of people are getting it. Don't go to the gym. I have some clients, that were like, I don't think they realize that. It's almost like people think Omicron is not COVID. They think it's like some other virus. It's COVID. Don't go to the gym. You're going to get people sick. I don't care if you wear a mask or not. Stay out of the gym until you test negative for it. It's not, that's why it's spreading, because people are not staying in the house because they don't, what the problem is, they don't feel that bad because it's not really a very virulent strain of COVID. So they get maybe a little fever for one day, they stay home, and then they think, oh, I feel good, I'm going to go out and you can't go out until you test negative for the thing, okay? You don't want to get people sick. All right, having said that, I feel like my conscience is cleared. Supplement-wise, obviously you want to take all your vitamins and minerals, okay, and trace metals, okay? That should always be something that you take. That's your base. That's why I produced V Mineralized. I mean, that's chelated minerals, vitamins in effective dosages, specifically chelated zinc, we know works tremendously well against inhibiting the viral, the COVID virus from replicating. The key is getting the COVID, the zinc chelate into the cells. And the best way to do that would be with some kind of a quinine solution. Now, you can take quinine pills, you can take hydroxychloroquine, which is a prescription drug, or you can, I call it the cheap man's way or the poor man's way of doing it. You can go to the supermarket and buy diet tonic water, buy a couple of cases of it, and just drink like 6 ounces 3 times a day, and that's going to push the zinc from the V mineralized into your system and into your cells, and that's going to inhibit COVID from replicating. So that's important. You also want to take essential fatty acids, fish oil specifically, at least 3 grams per day to inhibit the clotting aspect of COVID, because we know that the spike protein, which is what attaches to the cells from COVID, the COVID virus, causes some kind of clotting cascade in the body, and it can increase clotting. Okay, we know that omega-3 fatty acids from fish oil inhibit clotting. Okay, so much so that I've had bleeding incidents when I've had surgery and I forgot to go off the omega-3. So take your Omega-Lyze. Not only does the Omega-Lyze have the fish oil in it, it has evening primrose, which is an omega-6 fat that's anti-inflammatory as well. Remember, inflammation also incites problems in the body, causing that cytokine storm that we talk about, meaning that the immune system overreacts during COVID, which can make the issues worse, specifically in the lungs, and make it very difficult to breathe. So taking a good essential fatty acid supplement is going to blunt that effect that goes on in the body, and that's what we want. Reduce inflammation, okay? Reduce the cytokine storm, prevent clotting. That's very important. Taking enough vitamin D3 is really important too, because vitamin D3 gets drastically depleted, we've seen, with COVID. So, my V mineralized formula has 2,000 IUs. You need more than that. You should take an additional 5,000 IUs on top of that every single day. That's something you should do all the time, whether you have COVID or not. So, very important. Also, if you get COVID, taking additional vitamin C can be helpful as well. 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams per day of like a conventional vitamin C. Some of the new liposomal vitamin Cs are really good. You can kind of get away with taking a little less. It kind of lasts in your system a little bit longer. I did a video on that. You can check that out. Sid could maybe link that to this Ask Dave topic. I think that's probably it's a little more expensive, but if you don't want to spend the money on the liposomal, just do 3,000 milligrams of vitamin C spread out throughout the day. Also, and that's going to help you tremendously. So these are all things you can do. My cardiologist is a big believer in quercetin. Quercetin is another one of these anti-inflammatory natural bioflavonoids that helps reduce inflammation. You can add that. Curcumin is another really good one that contains turmeric. So inflammatory reaction seems to be something that we want to temper, and we want to prevent clotting. The great thing is that a product like Omega-Lyze does all that in one formula. So these are things you should do anyway for general health. And I've been, talking about this probably ad infinitum for the last, 25 years about what stuff you need to take on a regular basis. Now that people are getting sick and they're realizing that mineral depletion, vitamin depletion makes things worse, now they're really trying to investigate and really invest heavily in what they're taking supplement-wise. I think on people's minds now, it's not, hey, I got to get a pre-workout and an amino acid product, which is what everyone used to reach for first. Now people are saying, hey, how do I keep my immune system healthy? How do I keep myself from having side effects associated with COVID? Because it seems like most people in the population will get COVID at one point or another. Tyler just sneezed. Now we have to put him in quarantine for 2 weeks, okay?
Yes, it comes.
That's it, pretty much in a nutshell.
So that's the end. No, just kidding. We'll take one more question from B Winery 20. I know you had addressed this at some point way back when in terms of why you stopped competing. So the question is specifically why you walked away. I guess I'll expand it, if you want to share your story, but then for a bodybuilder, what are the signs that they should walk away?
Yeah. For everyone, it's different. So I can only tell you why I decided to stop. I always had this belief in my head that when I couldn't be better than I was the year before, that's it. It's over. Because I don't want to go in reverse. So I hit a point in 2003 where I placed second at the USA. I was very close to, getting a pro card, obviously. But after that, I competed once in 2004, and I went down a couple places, and I said, and at this point, my shoulders, I was really faking it. I could barely pose on stage because my shoulders were really, really painful. And I said, you know what? I can't really be better than I was because I can't train the way I need to. I can't even, finally I had good body awareness on stage and I couldn't even pose the way I wanted to because I was in so much pain with my shoulders and they wouldn't externally rotate. Notice they do now because I have fake shoulders, but I couldn't do that. So I said, you know what? It's stupid for me to continue to risk my health and take these drugs and keep my body weight at such a high level if I can't even, you know, if I'm not using it for any good. You know, I'm not using it to promote myself anymore. I just don't want to go I don't want to go downhill and have people say, oh, he looks terrible. You know, so I left on top, at least on top for me, you know, my top. And I think you got to figure out what your top is. And I said, you know what? I want to go in another direction anyway, because I really wanted to start my own supplement company. I wanted to get involved more with teaching and educating people through, you know, at the time that was through writing for the magazines. I was writing obviously for Muscular Development at the time. And that was really where my passion started going in that direction. And I was helping a lot of guys get ready for shows and compete. And to me, that was becoming more exciting because I felt like I can kind of live vicariously a little bit through them. So for me, it was the writing was on the wall. And I always said to myself, I don't want to be competing. You know, if I always said, if I'm competing at 40 years old, you know, shoot me. That was always I always said it as a joke, but I just knew that would not be a healthy way to go. I didn't want to go past 15 years, you know, and so I had been doing 13 years of anabolics, and I said, that's enough. And so I just stopped. And I you know, sometimes you have that little voice inside you that whispers in your ear, hey, buddy, it's time, you know. And I always found that every time I didn't listen to that little voice, it's only been maybe once or twice in my whole life, I had bad outcomes from not listening. So I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm not afraid to make changes in my life. I'm the kind of guy that it's all or none. I'm going in one direction, 100 miles an hour. I am immersing myself in it. When I feel that, hey, you know what? It's time to leave, I back out and I go in another direction. And you can't be afraid to do that in life. If you are, you're going to become stagnant and you're going to either, number one, wind up with something, you know, seriously wrong with you, or you know, you're going to be endangering your life, or you're just not going to feel like you're passionate about what you're doing anymore. And who wants to do that? Who wants to I didn't want bodybuilding to become like a terrible job for me. So that was how I looked at it. I've told people, and they know who they are, hey, you know what? I know you like bodybuilding, but there's really no reason to keep putting your body at risk at this point. You have this wrong with you and that wrong with you. You have a family. You know what? You're a smart guy. You can coach people, move in that direction. And some people have listened and done very well for themselves. Other people didn't, and unfortunately, they're not here. And I'm not saying that I'm, you know, the great Swami, you know, or a soothsayer. I'm just saying sometimes you got to read the writing on the wall. Don't wait until it's too late. Make the change when you know internally that the time is to move on.
That is going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Reminder, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. We didn't mention earlier in the show, we have an exclusive interview with Dr. Tony Huge. Obviously, he went through his own recent health scare. He gave you, entire detail as far as what happened, what he was taking before it all happened, how his health, his heart function is now, and, you know, all the contributing factors that led to it. So highly, highly informative interview with Dr. Tony Huge. That is live right now on the channel, as is all new episodes of the After Hours podcast. And then, of course, our live episode of Heavy Muscle Radio. For Dave Palumbo and Tyler Shore, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.